It has been a long time since I sat down and told you guys any stories about past vehicles that are in mine and my family's history. To be quite honest, I'm running out of cars to talk about. I talked about all of mine. I've talked about most of the ones that my family have owned. I remember quite a few of the cars that my family has owned. The problem is I don't really have any pictures or video or anything to kind of show you guys the car itself. The car that I'm going to talk about today, however, I do have very little footage and pictures of. Not much, but today I was able to find an example in person that I filmed real quick. It was kind of like, what are the odds of having one of these cars show up at the time that I was thinking about making this video. So kind of lucked out there. I can kind of give you guys a quick example of the car. It's not entirely the same, but for the most part, the majority of it was the same. My example car does not run. It's a scrap vehicle. It's going to the scrap yard. So at least I was able to kind of quickly film around it and at least kind of show you guys in person what the car itself was. And it's a car that we've all seen before. It's a very, very common car, especially in the Chevrolet name. What car am I talking about? Well, if you've looked at the title of this video, I am talking about the Chevrolet Lumina. The Lumina was a very, very common family sedan in the early to late 90s, throughout the 90s. A lot of people owned a Chevrolet Lumina. They were a very popular fleet vehicle as well, so a lot of businesses owned these cars and such, which is where we got ours from. The guy we bought the car from, he bought it from a local business in the area who drove it since it was brand new, and then we picked it up for ourselves in 2004. So for those of you who don't know what the Chevrolet Lumina is or the backstory, I will kind of just briefly tell you a little bit about this car. So the very first generation Lumina made its debut for the 1990 model year, and it shared the same platforms with the Buick Regal and the Pontiac Grand Prix and the Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme at the time. There was also a minivan version that debuted around the same time, known as the Lumina APV. My cat wants in the room, but I cannot have him in here because this room's a mess because of how busy I've been lately, and he gets into trouble, so we can't have him in there. I'm sorry for all the sad meows, as much as I'd like to let him in here. I can't. So the second generation model came out for the 1995 model year, and this is the one that we had. We had the second generation. Our Lumina was a 96. And again, at this time, Chevrolet was also bringing back the two-door version, which is the Monte Carlo. So they look identical inside and out. The only real difference is, of course, is that the Lumina is the four-door and the Monte Carlo is the two-door. But other than that, they were pretty much nearly the exact same vehicle. In the time period for the second generation model, there were 3 trim levels throughout the majority of its life. There was a base model, there was an LS, and then there was the LTZ, which was your top-of-the-line kind of, performance type Lumina. But I'm pretty positive that ours was a base model, and our Lumina really wasn't that spectacular, to be honest with you. But it was a nice car. It was base model. It was very plain. But I'll get to those specs here in a little while. So I actually didn't know until I was looking at the one that I filmed today briefly, I had no idea that this car made it out of the 90s. I guess they quit making the Lumina after 2001. So the 2001 model year was the last year for the Chevrolet Lumina, and I had no idea. I thought that the Malibu was the one that was replacing the Lumina, but then I kind of looked into it a little bit more, and I found out the Malibu is not replacing the Lumina. I guess the Chevrolet Malibu was actually replacing the Chevrolet Corsica and its counterpart, the Chevrolet Beretta. I had no idea that those two cars were related until I looked into it a little further. So the Lumina technically kind of was replaced by the Chevrolet Impala when the Impala kind of came back. So enough about this. Let me go ahead and just tell you guys where our 96 Chevrolet Lumina came into play with us. It was the summer of 2004. I was 17 years old, and I still had my Pontiac Sunbird. I was still driving my car. This was after the accident, so my car was totaled, and I bought it back for about $80-some, I think it was. So I was driving that, and my mom was driving a 1992 Pontiac Bonneville, which if you had watched, vlogs and vlogs ago, I told the story about that car and how it became mine. But at this time, my mom was driving this car. Well, the Bonneville was having all kinds of weird electrical issues and, and, it was getting to the point where, she, wanted to kind of have them fixed. So we took our car to this mechanic, and he really didn't do anything. He screwed us pretty good, but I'm not going to get into that. But needless to say, he gave us a car to drive, and what he did give us was a 97 Chevrolet Lumina, and it was like a taupe color, and the inside was actually the same color as the outside from what I can recall. But it was actually a pretty decent vehicle, and we had it for quite a while my car was supposedly, or my mom's car was supposedly getting fixed. But he didn't charge us to use this car, so we had this car for a while, and my mom grew to really like driving this car. And I drove it a few times, and it really didn't seem that bad of a car. So when we gave the car back, and we got our car back, we were just kind of upset that the car was not fixed. But needless to say, it started getting to the point where my mom was really unhappy driving the Bonneville. And then ironically enough, a 1996 Chevrolet Lumina was up for sale, in our area, and decided to go look at it. It was, from what you can see here, with one of the only few stills that I can find of the car, a couple of stills here. The car was like this dark blue color, which was not a bad color. I did like the color. The body of the car was in pretty decent shape. I don't remember there being too much rust or anything like that. The inside, I honestly hated the inside of this car, but not necessarily the way the car was set up. I did like the interior of the car very much. It was the color, and the color was also blue. It was blue everywhere. The entire dashboard, all of the seats, the door skins, the ceiling, everything in this car, with the exception of a little piece of wood trim going across the front passenger side. That was it. The entire car was blue. And looking back at it, it's really weird because I can't picture this car being any other color but blue on the inside. The outside of the car was blue. I think, maybe it could have gray interior. Well, for some reason, I can't picture that. It just seems like it'd be kind of funny. Black interior, it seems like it'd be kind of funny too. Definitely not tan. I don't think the blue and the tan would really go good. So I guess we're just stuck with leaving it blue. Real kicker on this car was the mileage. Like I said, our car was a fleet model. A local business had traded it to this guy, and this guy, was selling it, and yeah, it was really high mileage. But when we first bought this car, you would not have even thought that it drove with, it's been through that much mileage. It really did drive like it was a well-maintained car, and it handled very well. It had a lot of pep. It had the 3100 V6, and it picked up quite nicely with that car. The car, like I said, was most likely a base model. It did not have a whole lot of options. It had manual windows. It did have power locks. I think that was a standard feature on the base model. It didn't even have a cassette player. This car, when we got this car, came with just a simple AM/FM radio. And that was it. No CD, no cassette even. Just an AM/FM radio. Which eventually drove my mom nuts because she was used to having her cassettes and her CDs and stuff to listen to. So the radio thing, which I'll get to here shortly, did not fly for long. It did not have a center console. It had a steering column mounted shifter, and the front seat was kind of like a bench seat. It had a little fold out armrest that opened up, and I can't remember if there was a cup holder in there or not. There might have been a cup holder. According to the manual, and yes, I do have the owner's manual. Yes, there was a cup holder that did come out of the little compartment, the armrest of the bench seat. One of the first things to break on this car that I remember was the seat back, the driver's seat back. So anytime that you went to go sit back, you ended up doing this. You really had to hold on to the wheel for a while and try not to, go like this when you're hitting the gas pedal. Now, my mom found a solution to that. She found this old thing that we had. It was some sort of container, and she propped it up against the back seat, so she was able to, lean back some. But I don't know why we never got that fixed. I remember talking about maybe just going to a junkyard or something and pulling another seat out of another Lumina. But we never did it. So it was we just kind of stayed with the bucket thing or whatever we had back there. The other thing that broke on this car that I remember was the and this was a big issue here for a little while, but it's an electrical issue, and it turned out the master relay center under the hood, we had to tear it out and get another one. What was happening was there was all of a sudden, just one night, we were driving the car, and she didn't have any rear lights at night. And that also goes for the dashboard lights either. So like all of these things all of a sudden were not working. And we kind of traced it down to the relay center, which had completely corroded. So needless to say, we had to go to a junkyard with, we had some help, and we went to a junkyard, and we ended up pulling the entire relay center out of another Lumina. So once we had hooked it back up to our car, everything worked back to normal. Another thing that broke on this Lumina at some time in its life were the windshield wipers. They didn't necessarily break, but again, the wiper motor relay, or the relay in the motor, I guess, gave out, so you couldn't use the wipers on any speed but high. And when you would turn the wipers off, they would stick wherever you turned them off at. So they never completely rested in their original position when you turned them off. They would stay here or here, And yeah, that was annoying for a while. We got that fixed. We also had help with that, and I remember that being a big ordeal, trying to get the wiper motor and the entire assembly out of that car was pretty challenging, but we managed to get it done. So the only real video that I have of this vehicle was when we were trying to surprise my mom with her birthday gift that following year. We had a little surprise party. Some friends of ours, you know, we had this whole thing planned where, you know, I took her car to school and she took my car for the day, and I made up some excuse to you know, let me have the car. I told her one of the things that I was going to have it, you know, cleaned up really well, because it was in the winter and stuff, and I said, you know, as one of your birthday gifts, I'll have somebody clean up your car, which I did. I ran the car through the laser car wash, but I took the car to my friend's house and I put in a CD player for her. She had no idea that that was going on at all. So that is something that I do have on video, and it was a really nice moment. My mom was very, very happy and very grateful that we did that.
Go to a car all washed and put a CD player in it. Surprise! Surprise!
Oh my gosh!
Happy birthday!
And if you look at the inside,
No, I love it. It looks
look
nice.
at the inside.
I love it.
Step,
I
open
love
the
it.
door
It
so
looks
you can
really
get inside.
nice.
Look at the inside.
It looks.
Tyler!
I'm wasting film here.
Yeah.
Look at the inside.
Oh,
Get
it's
in.
in the inside.
Yeah, it looks
Sit in it. Try it out.
Come on.
I made sure it was all clean and everything.
Michael, it looks nice.
Come on.
It looks so
great.
good.
Yeah, it looks.
It looks great.
Look at the passenger side.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
really
Mom.
nice, don't it?
Michael.
It's just a CD player. Wow.
Hey, turn it on so she can see.
Thank you so much.
Now you need the CD first.
Oh. Okay. Well,
It's just like mine.
Okay.
Don't drive away. I'm on the car.
Only yours.
Okay. I don't know how to turn it on.
Push the red button.
I can't.
Did I stop recording now?
Yours is blue though.
So other than that, I don't really think there was much else wrong with the Lumina. Since the day that we did buy the car, though, the service engine light was on, and didn't really seem to be a problem. The car was running fine. You know, there was nothing wrong with it. Like I said, it drove like the car hadn't been through 200 and some thousand miles. It was a very, very nice car to drive for how old it was. But then eventually the service engine light started blinking. And if your service engine light is blinking, you're starting to run into some more serious problems. And that blinking eventually turned into a misfire, so the car wasn't firing on all of its 6 cylinders. Some of you guys may know where I'm going with this. Eventually, it just was running really bad, and finally, we took it to another mechanic, and of course they diagnosed it as a misfire. Well, it turns out there was a bigger problem at hand, and it was something that I had never known about, and this was my very first experience of finding out what happens here in this situation. It turns out the head gasket in this car finally gave out, and it was something that we didn't know. We didn't know about it. I didn't know about it. I wasn't as knowledgeable about cars back then as I am now. But it being the 3100 V6, you know, soon enough we come to find out that all of those cars have that issue. So every one of those 3100s at some point, they lose a head gasket. And if you don't catch it in time, much like my 3400s from my Alero and my Aztec, you know, if you don't catch them in time like I was able to then, that motor's going to be toast. And it turns out that this car was pretty much on its last leg. They were saying, you know, it was going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to fix. And it was, you know, the car was old and the mileage was high, and we didn't have the money, to be honest with you. So we were kind of getting back to the point where we're not going to have another car again. At this point, my Sunbird was gone, you know, so that car was scrapped. I was pretty sure the Bonneville was gone too. I had my Alero, I'm pretty sure, at this time. So yeah, I mean, the Lumina was just getting ready to go at some point. But the amazing thing is, we drove this car for like probably almost another 2 years while it was still in that bad a shape. So, I mean, we pushed that engine to the max when it came to the head gasket issue. And it was a terrible idea, but it was almost like there really wasn't any other choice. So that was all that we had, you know. So finally in 2006, in April of 2006, my mom bought the 04 Chevrolet Malibu Classic, which is the same car that she has now. She bought it with 38,000 miles. It is now at 104,000, and that car has been wonderful. But that's the car that she has now. We bought that. My brother, who had just gotten his license a couple months ago, needed a car, so we gave him the Lumina. And like I said, he drove that car for almost a year at that point with a blown head gasket. So other than knowing that the head gasket was blown at first in the beginning, you know, with the misfire and stuff, the car really didn't seem like it was lagging much in power. I mean, you had to push it some, but over time, you know it was getting bad because it didn't want to go anywhere, and at some point it started to tick, and it started to I mean, it started to get loud, and we knew, you know, like I said, we were waiting for this car to just kind of go, but I'm surprised it made it as long as it did. One of the last straws that happened while this whole intake issue and stuff had taken place, this was, I'm pretty sure, in the beginning of 2007, was the heat had finally gone out of the car. So tried to change the thermostat with a friend of mine, and we changed the thermostat, all gunked up. That, you know, obviously that engine coolant in with that oil and such circulating through that radiator and such, it was all backed up. There was, you know, we thought maybe changing the thermostat was going to work because the car would get hot, or not hot, but like it would get really warm, and then it would back down, and it, you know, it would fluctuate. But yeah, the head gasket had definitely taken its toll on the car. And even after the thermostat was changed, there was no heat, so the heater core was probably plugged up, and it was just, we knew the time was come to get, you know, to get rid of the car. So in February of 2007, I bought my 03 Pontiac Aztec, and I gave my 99 Olds Alero to my brother, and then we sold the Lumina for scrap. So that was basically the end of the run for the Lumina. And I don't know what the final mileage on the car was. I cannot remember, and I have nothing here to even kind of backtrack on as far as where the mileage was.
So here's the closest example that I have to the Lumina that we had. This is, honestly, I'm not sure exactly what year this is, but this is, it says it's a 2000. I don't know if that's correct or not. It's a scrap car, ironically enough. But since I didn't have a video of the, you know, the Lumina that we had, this is going to be the best one that I have. So I don't know if it runs. It's in pretty beat up shape. It's rusting out some. It's definitely lived a hard life. I don't even know if it runs, but it's going, I'm pretty sure this is going to the scrap for sure. This came from an auction, so I don't know the history on the car. But the outside of the car, other than the fact that the color is different, it's not blue, it's this maroon color. Color's the same, or the body's the same style, same exact wheel covers that were on the one that we had. Did I say the mileage already? It says that this has 143,000. Yeah, same wheel covers. Tire is completely coming apart. It probably doesn't run. I would not be surprised if it didn't. This one's actually a little more loaded than the one that we had, but ours had the blue interior. This has this color interior. Same armrest, same steering wheel. I think ours didn't have powered windows. I'm pretty sure they were manual windows. The dashboard was set up the same, only everything was blue in our car. We even had the aftermarket stereo. This one's got the tachometer. Ours didn't have the tach. So yeah. Probably a 31, which is what ours had. Yeah. So ours had the same engine. It's got the new top design though. The 3100's different. So this might actually be accurate for the year. But regardless, this is the closest that I can get to showing you guys our Lumina, since I didn't have any, I don't really have any footage of it or any pictures, just a few here and there, but this is it. This was pretty much the exact same car.
You know, other than the stuff that I had mentioned, and for the condition of the car later on in its life, very, very impressive vehicle. That car got us through a lot of drives that were needed. It obviously got its previous owners, you know, through a lot of drives. But for how old the car was, and you know, it not being in the best shape, that really was a quality car, and it's amazing at how long that car lived, in the mileage that it was put through. Like you saw earlier, the only thing that I have is the manual with its portfolio. And I'm pretty sure the cover is completely, yeah, the cover stays in there, so the rest of the book just comes out. GM had pictures, real pictures during this time period. Here's a picture of the 3100 V6 that we had in there. But there was also a 3.4 dual overhead cam V6 option, and I've never seen this engine in person. Never. So that must be a very rare engine, the dual overhead cam version of the 3.4 liter V6. Here's a picture of the AM/FM radio that we had in that car. Car didn't have a tachometer. Had a very, very basic gauge cluster, just like this. Alright, so that really concludes the story about our 1996 Chevrolet Lumina. And hope you guys enjoyed it. don't forget to thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. Maybe comment down below and let us know that, you know, maybe if you've had a Lumina, if your Lumina was as reliable as ours or such. So, you know, hit us up on the comment section. Also, check out Mike's Vehicle Spotlight, which is my official vehicle touring segment that I post right here on this channel. Thanks for watching this vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I will see you guys later. So, thanks for watching. Take care.
Alright guys, so today is car wash day. It has been probably since July that I last gave this car a nice good hand wash, and it's definitely in desperate need of one now.